Well, I would encourage the gentleman to read the actual rule. Within, it's 837 pages. The speed with which these lawsuits came out doesn't reflect a full understanding of what's actually in it. There's still an allowance for, asylum, refugee, these sympathetic humanitarian cases. And it's not asking for immigrants to necessarily be wealthy. It's asking for a modicum of self-sufficiency, to not be reliant on the very limited social services of this country that are reserved for Americans.
Well, the readings are going to go down over time for several reasons. One is they could mask it like they've put a big sarcophagus over Chernobyl. They could put something over the top of a nuclear incident that would basically shield it. And the second side is that fire or whatever the explosion may have died down and gone out. And with it, you no longer have that rising cloud, that plume that we can trace. And so those are two very realistic thought processes of why they've actually been able to turn those sensors back on.
When you're negotiating with somebody, you need to know that the other person is negotiating in good faith. And if you know that China, the People's Republic of China, which is run by the Communist Party, breaks its promises, as you said, to the WTO
right.
on property rights, intellectual property rights, then what can you expect when they make a promise in a trade negotiation? If it breaks its promise to the people of Hong Kong, a promise contained in an international treaty, by the way, entered into the United Nations.
Okay. It's really immoral and anti-American, frankly, to be rooting for a recession. Look no further than Bill Maher, who admitted so much on his show this weekend. He said he wants there to be a recession because he is that obsessed and worried about beating President Trump.
The economy is doing well right now. Markets will go up and down. I think trade talks have a big impact on this. But in terms of unemployment numbers and new businesses starting, all of those numbers point in the right direction. So I think it's very, no one knows exactly for sure when the next recession is coming, but I think there's a lot that can be done to keep it out of that factor, and that's probably stabilizing some of the trade talks that we hear about. And frankly, if Congress and Washington would start balancing budgets as opposed to putting those numbers forward, that could make a big difference as well.
In many ways, our founding, built on ideas that came from the Enlightenment, came from the founding fathers, was in many ways working in opposition to slavery and to racism as well. And I think those ideas come from the American people. It wasn't that slavery was the critical component to those ideas. Our ideas worked in opposition, which is why, of course, things like slavery have gone away. It took a terrible war to do so, but those things went away because of those foundational ideas.
The deficit and the accumulating debt are certainly a problem, and they're already a drag on our economy. One of the things that we pushed for, paired to when we were talking about the 2017 tax cuts, was to also reduce spending as part of that package. We know that when the government is more lean and more efficient, that is also a good thing for the economy, especially when paired with tax cuts.
Well, it's a tough one. We've been there a long time. It's a lot of blood and sacrifice. But the president's job is to look forward and say, what are America's interests and what are the best way to protect them? Not one soldier should put their life in jeopardy or be put in harm's way if it doesn't really serve an important interest in the United States. Stability of Afghanistan is very important.